Big series, plain and simple, against the Rays as we get ready for the All-Star break. It's Dukes and Bell, Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Let's talk to our man Grant McAuley. And Grant, news coming down about Elder and Strider with the All-Star game. What's the latest? What are you hearing?
Well, we knew that there are going to be those limitations for pitchers as you approach that All-Star game, with Bryce Elder starting the final game of the first half, Spencer Strider the penultimate game of the first half. It was always a question as to whether or not they were going to be able to pitch in the game. So that, I think, is something that, like, you appreciate the honor. They get to go have the experience, and then the National League can maybe look to get an arm that might be just a little bit fresher, and we'll see exactly how it all plays out and who gets those spots.
I know, Grant, I'm a worrywart, but I'm glad. I'm actually pretty good about this. I mean, I know that it's honor to see Strider come in and watch him throw 99-mile-an-hour stuff in that big stage. But, yeah, I'm also happy Matt Olson's not participating in the home run derby.
Yeah, and it's something Matt's already done before, so I feel like, he kind of checked that box on his all-star experience. I mean, he's putting on such a home run derby in the regular season. If I'm him, I'm going to enjoy going and getting to be a part of the all-star game, get a little bit of action in, also get a little bit of rest and not feel like you got to overexert yourself putting on a show, although to do it once I think is extremely cool. And, we'll see if maybe down the road he'll maybe revisit this decision. But for Matt, I think as much as anything, there was such a delay of kind of getting things where he wanted to be from a comfortability standpoint at the plate. So I don't think he wants to think so big that he's got to go out and hit 30 home runs in 10 minutes or something like that.
Right.
All right, Grant, let's talk about the Rays. They're struggling right now. Is this a wounded team or a dangerous team that we're going to face tonight?
Probably a little bit of both, because I think that a lot of the components are still there in terms of their lineup, which is very talented and which can, pile up some runs and have some home run threats. And it's not a whole bunch of guys that you know very well. It's guys that are putting together good seasons that are, a young phenom like Wander Franco, of course. He's an all-star. Yandy Diaz is another nice player that they've got. Josh Lowe, Brooks Raley. I mean, these aren't your household names, but you start to look at the splits and the way that they deploy their lineup and the mixing and matching and platooning. I use that as kind of an air quotes thing, because it's not a straight platoon. They just pick the best matchups possible. So they're going to be able to score some runs, I feel like. But from a pitching standpoint, with Shane McClanahan on the injured list, you're not having to run into him, though Tyler Glasnow is capable of missing some bats. He's been a long road back. It's kind of, the Braves have been trying to get Michael Soroka healthy for a while. Tyler Glasnow is kind of the same story for Tampa Bay. Then you're going to see Taj Bradley in the second game, and Zach Eflin, who's having a great season, who was actually pitching in relief last year for the Phillies. He's back in the starting rotation, starting role, and looking extremely good. So even though there is a little bit of the walking wounded that I think everybody's kind of dealing with at this point of the season, somebody that you would like to have around is hurt. This is still a Rays team I think is dangerous, despite the fact the Phillies just swept them in that 3-game series. I kind of look at them the same way I look at the Braves. They're not a team that's prone to long losing streaks. So if they just got swept, the very simple math tells me that maybe this is a club that's due for a win or two, and the Braves are going to do everything they can to stop that from happening.
It is the best baseball man in town. Grant McAuley's with his guys on the waitforit.com hotline. We had the beat reporter for the Rays earlier on the show this week, Mark Topkin, and we were asking him about Cash. Is Cash like the modern manager now because it's so much analytics?
I think so. I mean, and I really like the way that he manages the room as well, because there's this fine line, and I think we're seeing that every front office wants to feel like it has a certain amount of input. And I say input more so than meddling, or more so than like sending down decrees of, well, this is how we're going to do this, and you're the manager, we're going to tell you what to do. That is where I feel
like the Dodgers do?
Maybe a little bit, but more so I feel like the St. Louis Cardinals fell into that boat more than anything. And that's why you saw Mike Schilt go, because he clashed with the front office. And that's why I think Oliver Marmol is getting a lot more leeway, despite the fact the Cardinals are having one of their worst seasons in the past 25 years. But to kind of get back to Kevin Cash, he's one of the younger managers in baseball, but he, I think, was a perfect fit for that club, for what they're trying to do. He gets it, and it works for them. And I think that's the biggest thing, is every club, it's not just you roll off an assembly line and like, well, this is the only style of manager that's going to work in Major League Baseball. I think Cash is a younger voice in the room and is able to really relate, I feel like, with these players. And obviously they're playing a great brand of baseball. It's not all the manager's doing, and all the losses aren't the manager's fault. But I think he's a net positive for that club without a question.
Our day off has seemingly come at the right time pretty much all season, right? I mean, we went out West Coast and lost to the A's. That's the last time we lost a series. You got a day off, you got back to it. It's like yesterday, day off. What are guys doing? I mean, are they so in tune with what's happening this season? Are guys really taking time to relax and rest a little bit? Or are guys at the ballpark? Are they taking in BP? What's going on these off days?
No, they're definitely taking the time away from the ballpark, that's for sure. And one of the things that I feel like this club has done that kind of flies under the radar is that they spend a lot of time, you travel together, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be doing group activities. But this is a club that they have that camaraderie. It's not uncommon to see a large group of Braves kind of, taking in the sights or enjoying a dinner together and doing those kinds of things in the off day. And I think that as much as anything over the course of 162 games and 183 days, you got to take a little bit of time away from the ballpark, but still having that connection with your teammates, I think is something the Braves have continued to really tap in on this year, and just allows them to hit that reset button as much as you can with an off day and then a big series right before you get 4 off days for 2/3 of this club, but some other guys are going to be kind of busy with the trip out to Seattle.
So we know that Snicker likes to walk around like a Sam's Club or a Walmart. Is anybody going to hit the Salvador Dali Museum down there in St. Pete?
It's quite possible. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, some of these guys are very, very, very cultured. A fellow sophisticants, I believe, is the phrase that we use in Tombstone. But, yeah, this is a club that they find things to do, and I feel like that they just have a great balance. And that's something that you have to have, because this game will wear you out. This game will beat you down. And if you're not able to kind of, take that time away as much as anything just to kind of recharge and come back in and, give it a, fresh set of eyes from a good night's sleep, then it's going to be a very long season for you. And I think the Braves are probably trying to find their ways to enjoy that. And at least there was no cross-country flight with this road trip either.
Right. That's a good point. It's Grant McAuley, guys, our Braves insider, covers the Braves, also MLB for us. And by the way, Grant, when will you be on this weekend?
I'll be on from 5 to 7 this weekend, and we're going to be having a nice all-star edition of the show. We're going to be previewing the MLB draft, which has now been dropped into the all-star festivities, which I don't think anybody is really enjoying that, but be that as it may, from 5 to 7 on Sunday night, I'll be on for From the Diamond here on 92.9 The Game.
All right. So,
no, I just wanted to ask about, when we talk about the standings, and we were saying, what team do you think is likely to make a run? Mike and I were saying the Phillies. All right. I mean, the Mets are 17 back, guys, despite with what's going on with their team. Do you agree? Do you think the Phillies will make a run here in the second half if you had to pick any team in our division? Or is it the Marlins that make that run and make a move at the deadline?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go with the Marlins here, but I'm not going to discount the fact that I think the Phillies will do what they can to get back into things, to grab a wild card spot, which they're right in the hunt for, exactly where they want to be. The team on the outside looking in is the one you mentioned. I mean, it's the New York Mets. They've been as many as 18.5 games out in the first half this year, and that's just not something that I had even thought of as a possibility for how the NL East was going to play out. Now, they have some time, but they're going to have to get healthy. They're going to have to win some games. They've been doing a little bit of that lately, but can they keep that going and close July in a way in which Steve Cohen and Billy Epler and anybody that's got to make decisions looks at this club and says, okay, I feel like we can dip into some of our prospect capital and maybe we're a left fielder away. Maybe we're another starter. Maybe we're a closer away, whatever it is that they're going to go out and look for. But I think the Marlins are poised in a really interesting place to jump in and make a splash, no pun intended, because they have a young team. They have some talented starting pitching. They're going to throttle back Uri Perez and kind of watch his innings and have him ready for that second half push that they want to make and ready for the postseason. But I think they could be in the market for a starting pitcher at the very least. I think they would love to find someone. I think a big hitting third baseman would be nice for them. Who's going to be available at the deadline, though? That's a great question. With the expanded playoff field now, clubs don't really have to throw in the towel as early because there's a couple of extra spots. So the Marlins are the club I'm looking at to see, is this the time that they finally look around and say, okay, we need to take this big step forward, because these guys that have come out here for the first 90 to 100 games by the time you get to the deadline, they've earned it, and they deserve the reinforcements, and we should buy in and start changing this culture to one that is where we expect to win. And when we do win, we're going to go out and get you the pieces that you need to make you that much better in the second half.
Heard the comments. We played the soundbite earlier today, Grant, of Ken Rosenthal saying, look, this Braves team is one of the most amazing teams he's ever seen, comparing them to the Red Sox, the Yankees of the late 90s and 2000s. So I want to stack that deck. When do we know about Max Fried? When are we going to see Max Fried? And even if Max Fried looks good, are we still going to maybe go for another starting pitcher?
Yeah, I'm very interested about the starting pitcher, the possibility of that. But Max Fried will have a rehab start with the Gwinnett Stripers on Sunday. I'm going to go up there and check that out before my show, see how Max is looking, and obviously get a little bit of a gauge from him on how he's feeling and maybe what those next steps are. But I was imagining, and I don't know, they haven't really laid all this out, that 3 rehab starts would probably be the minimum. I don't know that you could get away with 2, and I don't know that they want to stretch it to 4. I think that by the 4th one, maybe you just kind of monitor his pitch count and let him pitch at the big league level. but he's looked good thus far. And, the Braves have done all of this year with 10 combined starts between Max Fried and Kyle Wright, which tells you that they've found ways to make it work. But if they don't have them, or they have some concern level about, the depth that they need, I wouldn't rule out going and getting a starting pitcher. They don't really need to go out and trade for a bunch of bats. They've got that covered. The bullpen looks good. You could still, add another arm or two and kind of see how you want to finagle that. But maybe starting pitcher is the one spot that the Braves might just be assessing harder this year than they have perhaps since 2020, I believe, when their rotation was completely depleted and they were trying to figure out any way they could to plug holes there. But they're not quite that bad, but that is the spot that I would look at and say that that's the decision point for Alex Anthopoulos, at least as we sit right now.
All right. By the way, what are you doing All-Star Week? What's going on with you? Are you going? What's happening?
No, I would love to go, but I'll be watching on TV like so many others. I'm going to try to enjoy the home run derby a little bit, regardless of if there's a Brave in there or not. It's a cool field, certainly. I love maybe I'm just alone here, but I enjoy like the celebrity softball stuff, and the Futures game obviously piques my interest. And then the All-Star game itself is going to have a lot of Braves flavor, but I'm just going to try to enjoy it. We actually have 2 new puppies around my household, so
what kind?
I might
be
a little busy. We've got some. They're half French Bulldog, half Pekingese, and we are trying to get them all kinds of trained and ready to just have all the fun that we can possibly have over the course of the rest of the summer.
Hey,
awesome.
Before we let you go, Grant, I was talking to Carl off the air about this. I want to get it from you, a baseball man. When did putting nipples on the end of baseball bats become a thing? Talking about Ellie De La Cruz and the Reds.
I was unaware that it had become a thing, but I know that there have been a lot of players that have changed the different styles of the bat knob that they like. Jeff McNeil of the Mets has one that it just goes straight down, basically, and he's able to choke up or down as he likes. Austin Riley was using one that had almost like a giant disc on the end of it. That one just, I guess, to hold more to the bottom hand to help him, maybe get a little more power, pull through a little bit cleaner. There have been some changes like that, but I had not noticed anything like that. That was a very strange rules check, I guess. But, who knows these days? These guys know the rules, the managers anyway, and maybe that was just a chance to get under Mr. De La Cruz's skin. I'm not sure that's going to work, though. He's a little bit too talented for that kind of stuff.
Right.
All right, Grant, man, enjoy this series. We know next week some downtime for you, but we'll be watching our Braves at the All-Star and a game and seeing what happens. And then it's second half, man. It's all business as we try to make this march towards September, October, and be, in position to have home field throughout. Thank you again, Grant. Listen to him this weekend. When are you on again?
Yep, 5 to 7 on Sunday for From the Diamond on 92.9 The Game.
All right, brother. Take care.